Hey, it is 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Carissimo, and the show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're interested in starting or enhancing your real estate career, make sure you give us a call. Make sure you check us out online, but also make sure you tune in today because we're talking about a concept that's very important to real estate. It's depreciation. Whether it's the IRS tax deduction you get for depreciation, we're going to talk about when you can get that and what that amounts to, how to do the calculations on that to help understand investment deals you might be getting into. And we're going to be talking about all the different types of classifications of depreciation, what that means for you as a homeowner, what that means for you as an investor. I'm really excited for today's show. Stick with us. I'm John Carissimo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Carissimo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Carissimo, and the show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Today, we're talking about depreciation. What we do every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time is we bring you Ask the Instructor. This is a way to help our current students better understand some of these more complex topics, to help our previous students further their real estate education, and help our future students learn a little bit about real estate. So that's what we do every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern Time. This is a live stream. I've got Instagram online. I've got Facebook. I've got YouTube. We've got the Success Center on tampaschoolrealestate.com/success. We're broadcasting all over the place. Make sure you follow us on all these networks, and make sure you've got notifications turned on, or you're signed up for our email updates on our Success Center, tampaschool.com/success. So that way you guys don't miss any of this information. And of course, because this is live, if you guys have questions or comments about any of this stuff that we're talking about here, throw that in the live chat so that way we could go ahead and help you better understand this a little bit more. I've got our video genius here. I'm monitoring the comments, so if you guys have questions about any of this stuff, send that in and we will help you understand. But let's go ahead and get started talking about depreciation. It's an important concept to understand because this is really what makes it so that real estate doesn't last forever. So that's depreciation. And now with depreciation, there's a few things that, let's talk about some of the different types of depreciation. And this is the information, whether you're a homeowner or an investor. And even if you are a homeowner, you're part investor. Just inherently, even if you're just purchasing the home to live in, you probably want to be able to sell it for a higher price. You probably don't want to be throwing your money away in the property. You probably don't want to spend more money improving the property than you're able to get out of it. That term that we typically use is called an over-improvement, when you're spending more money on a property than you're able to get out of it. But now, what if that money that you're spending is not for something like adding a new addition onto the property or anything like that? What we're talking about is if we're fixing something. Because there could be something broken or wrong with the property. And this is something I see even when I'm practicing real estate, that sellers will want to, before they sell their house, get little things fixed up and put extra money into the property, maybe remodel a kitchen before they sell. And that's probably the best place to put your money when you're thinking about remodeling kitchens and bathrooms. But if you're putting more money into it than you're able to get out of it, you're wasting not only your money, but also your time and frustration going through this whole process and whatnot. So it's important for us as real estate professionals, whether that's as a professional, as a homeowner, or as an investor, to understand these concepts of depreciation. The first thing I want to talk about is curable versus incurable. So a curable depreciation. Now, if we think about this, you think of that word cure, to cure, searching for a cure, something like that. When it comes to human lives, to people, we'll go to any length. We'll spend any dollar amount to cure, or maybe our pets. We'll spend any dollar amount to cure our pets of a sickness, or our kids, or any living being. But the property, that's not a living being. And Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to cure the property. I mean, that's why you see properties get torn down and demolished to have a new property built on top of that. We wouldn't kill somebody off just because we're replacing somebody. So that's one of the things you have to understand with curable. Just because a cure, a remedy, a fix exists out there for real estate doesn't necessarily mean it's a good way to spend the money. And that's what we're dealing with curable versus incurable. So basically the classification that you want to keep in mind to understand curable versus incurable is curable is cost effective to fix. Incurable is not cost effective. Incurable is not cost effective. So curable is cost effective, incurable is not cost effective. It does not matter whether there is or is not some sort of cure for this. So sinkholes, for example, sinkholes, they can be fixed, but that's typically an incurable type of depreciation. Why is it incurable? Because it's going to cost a ton of money typically to fix that sinkhole, to put enough concrete underneath the property to where it's on stable ground. That's going to cost a lot of money. And hey, when you say that there was a sinkhole issue repaired, people still probably aren't going to want to buy the property. Maybe even as an investor, they're worried about that. They're like, well, I'm not going to be living there, so I don't worry so much about the sinkhole. But, if the house falls into the ground, then I'm kind of out of my investment. So it's a lot riskier of an investment even for an investor. And so that's a perfect example of an incurable depreciation. Another form of an incurable depreciation, low ceilings. A low ceiling would also be an incurable depreciation. Now you might be able to open it up, expand the ceiling a little bit more. Maybe you tear out the ceiling and you're just leaving it out exposed to the awnings and whatnot of the property, which maybe that's one thing you go, but now I'm talking about all these things and you're just probably imagining how expensive this is going to be. And you see all these shows where they're like, yeah, we're going to spend $20,000 installing this beam across here so we could get rid of this pole in the middle. When you see these, they're usually with entrances to kitchens and things like that, where they've got basically here is the wall for the kitchen, and there's this little opening here. And behind this wall, there's all these poles that are basically holding up the second floor. And what they're always doing in these shows, they're like, yeah, we're going to get this beam put in, this beam here, and this beam's going to cost us $20,000 so that we could get rid of this wall, so this wall is no longer here. That's an incurable depreciation. That's your Hollywood real estate for you, because that's not something that, the property does look so much better when it is opened up like that. I'm not arguing with that fact. I'm not arguing with the fact that it is a more appealing property with that wall gone, with it more open, the open concept and all that other stuff. But for the cost it typically takes to structurally secure the property when it's got these load-bearing walls here that are holding up the ceiling like that, that's an incurable depreciation. Because, yes, that does cause a loss of value. That's what depreciation is, first and foremost. To really understand what depreciation is and these more complex ideas behind depreciation, you have to understand the simple concept of depreciation, and that's the loss of value. So anything that causes the loss of value, like these walls that we've got here, almost everyone loves a property that's more open, and especially with the kitchen, where the kitchen kind of opens into the living room, and that makes it good for entertaining, and people like that. It appeals to people, and yes, you can get a higher price with that as well. It definitely changes the property. It changes it dramatically, but for a very dramatic price point when you're spending all this money on one of these expensive little beams that go across from one side of the building to the other. And you see it all the time in these shows, but again, that's Hollywood real estate for you. That's typically not cost effective for most investors. Yes, it's going to look beautiful when it's done, but if you're trying to, let's say, flip the property, or even if you're not flipping the property, you're maybe selling your property 5 years from now or 10 years from now when you want to move somewhere else. You're still flipping the property. You bought it, you're now selling it. That's really the definition of flipping. It's just not happening super fast within 6 months or a year like the investors that are doing this. But again, as a homeowner, you want to think of yourself as an investor, and you don't want to put all this money into property. Yes, it's so much more enjoyable with this all open here, but if you want to get the most money out of your property, that's an incurable depreciation. And an incurable means it's not cost effective. So let's talk about some things maybe that could be considered curable that are cost effective. So the depreciation, again, represents anything that results in some sort of loss of value, some sort of loss of value. And this could just be the paint being outdated. So the curable items, get rid of this incurable, because remember, we don't want incurable depreciations, especially if you're talking about, so one of the great ways as a real estate professional to help get your foot in the door early with somebody looking to sell their property is building that relationship early, just when they know that they want to sell eventually, but they're not ready to sell yet. That's your cue to get involved, to get in there and really start building that relationship. And a great way to do that is when they start talking about things that they're going to do to get their house ready for sale. You want to make sure that not a single one of them could even remotely be an incurable depreciation, meaning that they're going to spend more money than they're able to get back. And yes, it may help the home sell quicker, but at what expense? If they're planning on putting $20,000 into a property to get another $10,000 out of it, they're throwing $10,000 away. That's $10,000 more they could be using towards their new home that they're purchasing. So this is an important concept to understand. So with these curable depreciations, like I was talking about paint, a property needed to be painted. That's probably the number one thing, and they're probably familiar with that as well. But again, if you notice when you're kind of checking out the property, you offer it kind of, hey, do you mind? I'm going to be in that area. I could stop by one of these days here and take a quick look at your property and make some recommendations up for you. No obligation. I know you guys aren't ready to sell yet, but I'd just like to give you some tips to make sure you guys don't throw money away fixing up the property for things that don't really give you a return on investment. So number one is always the paint. The property almost always will need, unless it was just recently painted, it's probably going to need a new coat of paint. So that's one of the first things. And another thing, kind of goes along with the paint, is clean. Because a property being dirty, it being cluttered, let's put clean / not cluttered, because that's usually the clutter's typically what you see more than a property being dirty, for instance. But when I say clean, I mean spotless. And those are a form of a depreciation. It's a very easy to fix depreciation. That's why it's absolutely considered curable. Now, some of the other things, if we start kind of going further down the list, this could be the carpets. So with the carpets, if there's a lot of carpet in the property, what is the condition of that carpet? Is it relatively new? Does it have stains on it? Is it worn out? Does it look worn? Most people don't like carpet, but almost everyone hates dirty carpet. So most people don't like carpet, but the people that do like carpet, they don't like dirty carpet. So if the carpet's old, and that's usually why most people don't like carpet. The carpets that they make that are brand new carpets that are so soft and so nice, they're beautiful, they're perfect. They just don't stay that way. So almost everyone loves new carpet. Now, I'm not saying to just go through and for every property there needs to be new carpet in there, but that's something that could be a curable depreciation. And again, the definition here is could be. Not is, but could be a curable depreciation. If the carpet's in decent shape, it's not really worn out anywhere, and it's overall pretty clean looking, and even if it's not clean, maybe you just need to get Stanley Steamer or one of those cleaning companies out there to give it a good thorough cleaning of the carpet. So that could be something as well, and that's very cost effective, and that will absolutely be a curable depreciation, because you're maybe spending $100, $200 to get the carpets cleaned professionally, and that's maybe another $1,000, $2,000 at least in return off of the property for what it could sell for getting the carpets clean. So the carpets, and now if the carpets, like I said, they're in bad shape, it might actually make sense. You might spend $2,000 getting the carpets replaced and get another $5,000 out of the property, or at least getting the property sell quicker. Any sort of improvement that you're doing to the property, unless it's an improvement that's really not an improvement, you're making the property worse, that could Those are anything that's an improvement, a true improvement to the property, will make it sell quicker. The curable versus incurable doesn't have to do with whether it'll sell quicker, because yes, if it is a nicer property, it typically will sell quicker. The question is it going to add value to the property? And something like the carpets definitely would be. So far we've got the paint, that it's clean, not cluttered, and then the carpets, whether that's just repainting, maybe just kind of cleaning the property a little bit, getting it decluttered, getting the carpets all set up. There's a few things I also want to cover that are also curable depreciation, but before we do that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Stick with us. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Curable, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to you live, to our previous students, to our current students, as well as our future students, to help you better understand the real estate industry and the technical side of the real estate industry. These concepts that, so depreciation, absolutely something that's covered in your pre-licensing course. You probably remember that if you already took the course, or you will learn about it if you're planning on taking the course sometime soon. But now kind of really tying that into these day-to-day operations and whatnot, that's what we like to do on State of Real Estate, what we like to do on Ask the Instructor. Those are our two shows that we do weekly, Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern Time and Fridays at 12 noon Eastern Time. So tune in live if you can, but if not, make sure you go back and recheck the replays if you're not available during those times. You could find all the replays of all of our previous episodes at tampaschool.com/success, SUCCESS, tampaschool.com/success. You can drop your email in there. You'll get email notifications whenever it is that we do go live, as well as you'll be able to see all of the past episodes. And we've been doing the shows, both of them now, for almost a year. So there's, I think, over 100 episodes of this, and they're hour-long shows, so over 100 hours of juicy content to help you better understand real estate and really take your real estate business to the next level. And this is, so on Ask the Instructor, we're usually talking more about this technical side of the things and whatnot, which this is your kind of bare minimum knowledge. You really just need to know what a depreciation is to operate in real estate, but now really having a mastery of this concept and really understanding it, especially if you're going to be an investor or you want your clients to be well served, you want to be able to kind of give these recommendations and whatnot. The faster property sells, not only is that good for your seller, but that's also good for you, because you get paid quicker, it's less time and effort you're putting into all this stuff here. So the more knowledge it is that you have, the more effective you're going to be as a real estate professional. And the real estate industry is a knowledge industry. The products that we're selling, they're not our product. The houses, we're just the middleman, and the reason why we're paid so handsomely for being these middlemen is because of our knowledge. We possess knowledge that the common person does not, and that's, as a true real estate professional, the more knowledge you have, the more effective you could serve your clients, and this overall really kind of just helps spread your word of mouth advertising to really kind of build up your client base. And I mean, there's a lot of agents out there that operate spending $0 in advertising, and they've got clients lined up to work with them because they're such a professional. So it's absolutely possible, but I mean, to kind of make that all work, you've got to know about these things. You've got to understand what a curable depreciation is, and you don't need to know the word. For your exam, yeah, you need to know the word curable. It's a cost-effective fix to a depreciation, and no, incurable is not a cost-effective. But in the real world, you just need to understand this concept that curable means it's cost-effective. That if you spend $1,000 painting the property, you might get $5,000, $10,000 back in extra value of it, because when people tour this home, they're going to see that it looks like it. I mean, nothing changes a property like a fresh coat of paint. That's the number one thing on the list almost any time. Unless the property was just painted, that's usually the first thing that really kind of changes the whole perspective of the property. And if the seller is willing to put some sweat equity into this, they could paint the property themselves for probably the cost of a couple $100s, if even that much, for it. So the paint is, again, absolutely a curable depreciation. Having it clean and not cluttered, I mean, this kind of goes without saying. That's absolutely, because the clutter, that decreases the value, because when the property is cluttered, it makes it difficult for potential buyers to envision themselves living in the property. They can't see past all of the clutter in the property. So you want to try to make sure that the property is nice and simple, get rid of some things, maybe put some things in storage, throw it all in the garage if you have to. That's probably the worst thing to do with it, but at least it's out of the actual living space so they could really kind of imagine themselves living there. And then at the same time, clean. And this goes for even the most clean freaks out there. When you live in the property, you get used to maybe some of these things that you might overlook. I mean, some of the things that you never see, but somebody with a different perspective might see, whether it's cobwebs up in the corners or dust on the baseboard, and just the little things like that. It could even just be the smell, you know, the whole Febreze thing with the nose blind and all that other stuff. And now where might that smell be coming from? Well, if there's carpets in the property, that's what makes it third on the list. Now, as we start talking about carpets, depending on what you need to do with these carpets, that's where we're getting into more costly fixes of the property. It might just take a good, nice carpet cleaning, $100, $200 to get some professional out there to go through and clean the carpet. Maybe not even that much, maybe $50, something like that, if it's not too big and it's not too soiled. And that might be all it needs. But if the carpet's really kind of worn out, if you're kind of seeing those spots where it looks like there's almost no carpet there, we're talking about carpet that's 10, maybe 15 years old, okay, that's where, you know, it might make sense to replace the carpet. And you might say as a seller, or your sellers might say when they're talking to you, oh, well, let's just let the buyer worry about these things. Yeah, the buyer could worry about the carpets, but what the buyer's going to do, and a good buyer's agent will say, hey, look, I mean, that property's going to need some new carpets in it, so we could use that to get a price reduction. We could go in at a lower price because of the carpets. And what they might try to do as well is maybe they get the property under contract, and during the inspection period, they're saying, you know what, we don't want to buy this property because the carpets are too out of shape. And now you're renegotiating this contract because during that inspection period, the buyer has a way out of the contract, so they could just walk away from this, or maybe they get you to decrease your price a little bit because of these things that need to be fixed. So ultimately, the more presentable that your property is, the better it's going to, the smoother your transaction is going to go, the faster it'll go under contract, and hopefully the win-win to this here is you're getting a return on your investment for the money you're spending on these things. And there's one more I want to throw in here, and this one is probably even a little bit more cost-effective than carpets, and this is the landscaping, the curb appeal. And this one is something that I would always recommend being done. If you're going to pick one thing, I would maybe even put this above painting for, okay, what's one thing here that we could do? Now, the curb appeal, to make a property presentable, there's usually not much that needs to be done, maybe just a quick, easy lawn mowing, and that usually doesn't have the biggest effect for this year. But if there's maybe like dead spots in the grass or the bushes, or if the driveway's dirty, or there's maybe stains underneath the windows, the reason why the curb appeal is so important is because with properties that are listed in the MLS system. And the MLS system is the cooperative system between brokers, really a database of properties that brokers could search in when they're searching for a buyer. Brokers and their sales associates, they could search in this system for their buyers to find, and it's the most comprehensive system that's out there, much more accurate than anything you'd find online with Zillow or Truly or Realtor.com or any of that stuff. And one of the things that's required, and this is where all these companies, Zillow's, Truly, Realtor.com, they all get their data from, is from the MLS system. And one of the rules of the MLS is that the first picture of the property, the first picture that shows the clients, has to be the exterior of the property. So it's really kind of like as if you're driving by the property. So if you're clicking through all these different properties, it's the visual equivalent of driving by the property. And if you see a property that looks run down from the outside, you're just going to keep driving. You're just going to keep going to the next property, to the next property, to the next property, to the next property. So that exterior shot, that exterior picture of the property, really nailing that is the key to getting them to look further at this. That's the way you kind of grab their attention when you're showing them the property. You grab their attention by showing them this great first picture. Hey, look how great this house is. Come check out the inside. That's what your picture needs to say of the exterior of the property. And so that curb appeal is important. Now, you don't have to go spend thousands of dollars in landscaping at Home Depot. Like I said, I'm talking the same type of thing. The paint maybe, is it clean? The carpets of the outside, is the grass? So all these three things we talked about for the inside, making sure that's all looking good on the outside. Again, you don't have to go crazy with the landscaping, but maybe throw some of that weed and feed stuff down on there. Give it some extra water so the grass starts looking real green in this, and make sure it's all trimmed up nice, all prim and proper. Doesn't have to be an extravagant landscaping job, but you want it to look presentable. And that first picture, like I said, is so important, because if you don't nail that, they're likely just to move on and go skip through other properties. There's so many properties that are out there for sale, even in a seller's market. When you're looking over a larger geographic area, there's so many properties that it starts to get overwhelming to buyers, and they're judging properties by that initial first impression. So that's our curable depreciations. Now, I want to talk about some other categories we could use to classify depreciations and help you better understand what depreciation is. And then we're actually going to do some calculations on the IRS depreciation deduction, which if you're looking at properties for investment purposes, this IRS depreciation deduction is a big benefit to investing in real estate. So there's three categories we have in addition to the curable or incurable. So curable or incurable is one way to classify depreciation. Is it cost effective, aka curable, to fix, or is it not cost effective to fix, also known as incurable? So that's what we were just covering. But there's three other classifications, and when you think of a depreciation, this first one is usually what comes to mind when you think of a depreciation. When you're thinking of, oh, it needs new paint, or this window's broken, or there's a leak somewhere. Those are all examples of what's called physical deterioration. So our physical depreciation, this is your normal wear and tear type of stuff. Our normal wear and tear, that's physical deterioration. And this really encompasses most types of depreciation, or the most common types of depreciation: the needing new paint, the broken window, the leaks, the squeaky floorboards, the carpet being nasty, the bad curb appeal, dead spots in the grass, dirty driveways, the stains that are underneath the windows on a property, and all that other stuff. Those are all forms of physical deterioration, and that's again what most people think of when they imagine depreciation. And now these physical deteriorations, these are the ones that you always want to look at first, typically, when trying to see, okay, what's a quick, easy, inexpensive fix to get more money out of this property? And these are really the things that are making the property more presentable. But that's not our only type of depreciation. Our second type of depreciation is called functional. functional depreciation. And with functional depreciation, this has to do with a few different things. This is a little bit more complex than the physical deterioration. Physical deterioration, really best way to sum it up is the normal wear and tear type of stuff. Is it worn out? Let's just fix that because it's worn out. It needs a new coat of paint. That's physical. Functional, on the other hand, let me give you a couple examples of this here. So functional depreciation could be having to go through one bedroom to get to another bedroom, meaning that that other bedroom does not have a door of its own. You've got to go through one bedroom to get to another bedroom. Whether that was maybe one large bedroom that was split into two bedrooms and they didn't add a second door from the outside into that bedroom, that would be a functional depreciation because it's due to the way the property was designed. It could be that the bedrooms are small. That could be a functional depreciation. Now, when I talk about these things, we're usually talking about major structural things with the property. That example I gave you guys of the wall separating a kitchen and a living room, and you want to tear out that wall and put this great big expensive beam up there so you could have the nice open floor plan, that's a functional obsolescence, that wall. A functional depreciation, because that's due to the way the property was designed and built. Maybe the kitchen is too small. Maybe the kitchen is kind of boxed into this little tiny room that's it's like walking around in a closet. That would be a functional depreciation. And these can be fixed, but they're not usually considered curable unless it's drastically going to change the property value. There could be a curable functional depreciation, but typically with your functional depreciations, they're typically incurable. So our physical, typically curable, because usually with the physical things, the normal wear and tear, they're just things that need to be fixed. Things that are broken, things that are worn out that just need to be fixed. So that's a pretty inexpensive fix usually. So these are typically curable. The functional, on the other hand, this is the design, the materials that were used. So to talk about the materials, let's say you have a broken window. A broken window is a physical deterioration where the window's cracked or doesn't open or doesn't close. That's a physical deterioration. And a good kind of test to see whether it's physical or functional, was this a problem on day one? No, it wasn't a problem on day one. Okay, yeah, then that's due to normal wear and tear. On day one, the window wasn't broken, but then maybe somebody threw a ball and broke the window. That's now wear and tear. So that would be a physical deterioration, physical depreciation, which, putting a new piece of glass in that window, not too expensive. The functional, on the other hand, we could still be talking about a window, but it's not a window that broke. It's a window that functions fine, but it's maybe not an energy efficient window. That would make it a functional depreciation. So if we've got a single pane window versus a double pane window, the single pane, less energy efficient. And especially during the summertime, a lot of heat goes through that. Not much of a problem during the winter. It might be a little bit chilly, but you'll survive even probably without the heat on, at least here in Tampa. But with the cost associated with replacing these windows, I mean, we're maybe talking $1,000, $2,000 a window. And that's just increasing it with an extra plate of glass, which most buyers probably aren't even going to notice, especially if they're moving from, other parts of the country. They have the double pane and triple pane stuff a little bit more, especially when you get into the colder regions. But most people don't pick up on that. They see the big, beautiful kitchen, and they're like, wow, this property has a great kitchen. People don't go into a property and say, wow, this property has multiple panes of glass in the window. They might say, wow, it has a lot of windows, but they're not going to say, wow, it has a lot of panes of glass in the windows. So that's you can see why these are incurable. Because yes, that does ultimately make the property nicer. It makes it better. And you tell somebody, and look, it's got double pane, or it's got triple pane windows, and the buyer will say, oh wow, that is nice. But they're probably not even going to notice it themselves in most cases. So these aren't things that necessarily add to the value. So our functional is typically incurable. So typically incurable for our functional types of depreciation. And we've got one more, and that's called our external. Our external depreciations. And external depreciation, that doesn't mean outside the building, it means outside of the property, meaning your neighbor. So if your neighbor is, their house is run down, maybe it's they've got no lawn there. Yes, they do have space for a lawn, but it's just a bunch of dirt there. If they've got all kinds of stuff strewn about in this, we're talking maybe an area that doesn't have a homeowners association, because typically they won't let that fly, and this is just an eyesore to look at. That's an external depreciation. And now what can you do about it as a property owner? I mean, really, short of put up a fence, that's really the only way you could try to mitigate those external depreciations. Some of the other big ones are, and this is really one you can't mitigate for the most part, is it's on a busy street. If it's on a busy street, especially when it's not one of those circular driveways, if you got some sort of like crazy busy street here and your driveway circles around like this, then you can kind of pull in here and then go out here so that you're facing the traffic when you're pulling out. But when it's not one of those circular driveways, when you're just got a regular straight driveway onto this busy street and you're trying to back out with your vehicle, that's scary. It's scary when you got people whizzing by at 50 miles an hour, multiple cars, and you're trying to back out onto that. So that would be another external depreciation. Power lines, the big high voltage power lines that scare people away because they think it's the government that's going to mind control them with these power lines there, and they're closest to the source of that being by the power lines, or just because of maybe that's, I mean, there's a lot we don't know about the power lines. I mean, who knows what's going on with those there, and it's that unknown that, I mean, even you throw scientific facts at them about this and so on and so forth, and they're like, they're just not nice to look at. So I'm fine living by them, but I'm not worried about my health, but, I just look out there, I don't want to see this big, ugly power line. So that's another external obsolescence. Or maybe it's not visual eyesores, but maybe a factory, nasal, nose sores, really, I guess would be not eyesore, nose sore. Maybe you live next to a garbage dump or a landfill. That's a big external obsolescence, a big depreciation of your value. You take your property and transplant it away from the landfill, it's typically worth a lot more money. So those are a couple different examples of what the external depreciations are, the depreciations that are outside of property lines, and these are almost always incurable. And before we take another break, I just want to kind of, because you might be saying, okay, well, that's great to know this stuff, but what's the practicality of understanding this for the real world? Well, understanding these categorizations of the depreciations and when they're typically curable and almost always incurable, and then sometimes they're curable but probably incurable, this helps you make those determinations. Like I was giving you that list at the beginning, hey, these are the things you should do. If you're looking to sell your home, don't do that because that's going to cost too much money. You're not going to get a return on your investment. Really the only ones they should be doing, especially if they're getting ready to sell their home right now, because the functionals are usually big, expensive, long-term fixes. Really the only ones you should be recommending and advising are physical deteriorations, and sometimes fixing these physical depreciations are going to be not cost effective. This may be an incurable physical depreciation. Maybe it's going to cost $4,000 to repaint the property, but it's not going to add that much in value because maybe it's a very large property and it needs a lot of paint or something like that, and the paint's not in the worst shape. So that would probably be an incurable depreciation at that point. So they could go either way with any of this stuff here, but it's good to know that most of the time your physical deteriorations are going to be fixable, and not only fixable but cost effective to fix. The functional things, the layout of the property, the materials that were used for it, the design of the property. If you're talking to a seller and they're talking about replacing their windows for double pane windows to help it sell at a higher price, that's where you want to step in and say, hey, look, that's a great idea, but from what I've seen before, it doesn't usually translate to extra price. And you can explain to them, hey, the buyer's going to come in, they want to look at the kitchen, they want to look at the bathrooms, they want to maybe see that the paint colors are neutral and they're not off-putting from the paint colors. They're not going to go into a property and say, oh, does it have double pane windows? Nope, not interested. Yeah, so I mean, it's a plus to have that, but it's usually not a cost-effective plus. That typically, depending whether you're looking at it as an improvement or fixing the problem of single-pane windows, if it's the depreciation of single-pane windows, that functional depreciation, that's an incurable depreciation. But let's say that you're looking at it from the perspective, okay, are we improving the property? Yes, we are, but it's an over-improvement as well. The incurable depreciations are also kind of known as the over improvements. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the IRS tax code and how that benefits you with this depreciation deduction if you're a real estate investor. And we're going to be talking about understanding how to quantify this depreciation in dollars as well. So stick with us. I'm John Kursmo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Kursmo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Kursmo, and the show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we come to our previous students, our current students, and our future students to help all three of them get a better understanding of these concepts that make you a better real estate professional, a more knowledgeable real estate professional. This is absolutely a profession where the more you learn, the more that you earn. Because the whole premise of real estate, a lot of people says, oh, you're going into real estate, you're going to be selling houses. You're not selling houses. Your product is not houses. You actually don't have a product. It's your service. Your service is information. The seller is selling the house. People are buying your information. So the more knowledge it is that you have, and not just any knowledge, not just any random knowledge, but knowledge specifically dealing with real estate, which there's so much of it out there that's available, and so much that you can just find on YouTube through all of our videos. Go to tampaschool.com/success. It's a whole huge wealth of knowledge. I think we got a couple comments coming in.
We got a comment from Anthony Lagore, said, hey guys, with a wave emoji.
Hey, what's up, Anthony? We had some on Facebook too.
And then Vansco said, airplane path, question mark?
Yeah, so the airplane, great question actually. So an airplane path would be an external obsolescence because if we think about the airplane path, and this kind of confuses a little bit because you think about, air rights and all that blah, 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 but you're really not, as a homeowner, let's be honest here, even if there was some law out there that maybe gave you the ability to keep airplanes from flying over your head, we really don't have those. But even if there were, who do you think is going to have the better paid attorney? And that's usually what matters in court for all of this stuff as well. But the great question, because that would be an external deterioration. And if you guys are watching these videos to help you prepare for your exam, you absolutely want to know these terms, and that could show up. A flight path over a property, what type of depreciation is that? That's an external depreciation because it's outside of your property lines, and that does decrease your property's value. So, for instance, the South Tampa area, it's a very high value area, and there's some really beautiful places to live in the South Tampa area, and it's in high demand, and there's a shortage of land there because it's basically all built out. But you've got Tampa International Airport. With that getting busier, as Tampa grows more, that airport is just going to get busier and busier, especially you get even close to the airport, kind of like around like the West Shore area, the International Mall area, West Chase, and those areas, you hear the planes. If you don't mind planes, that's not a big deal, but you're eliminating potential buyers through that external depreciation. Let's talk about now the IRS. And if you're going into this as an investor, and this is an important concept to understand if you do plan on working with investors or becoming an investor yourself, you want to understand this depreciation deduction. And even if you're not an investor, this helps you understand how your property loses value. So the way the IRS puts a number on depreciation is they basically say, and there's a basic assumption all the time, 100% of the time with depreciation, and that's that you never depreciate land. So you do not depreciate land. Do not depreciate land. Land does not depreciate in value. Yes, the value of your land may change, but through the theory of appraisal, it's not due to depreciation. So, and this is important to remember also for your exam. Again, if you're watching these videos to help you prepare for the exam, that depreciation does not ever apply to land. So whenever you're doing calculations for this, you always take the land out of the picture before you start adding any sort of depreciation into the situation. And so what you're doing, so again, you want to understand that basic assumption. We don't depreciate the value of the land. That's going to be obtained independently of our depreciation calculations. So it's basically just the building value. You take the building value and you're going to divide that. The building value divided by, now the IRS numbers that they assign are either 27.5 or 39 years. And now which one is it that you use? So we either use 27.5 or 39. So the 27.5, this is for residential properties. $27.5 years, that's how long the IRS determines residential property to last. And now the great part about this depreciation deduction, you get it for as long as you own the property. Even if you own the property for 100 years, you'll still be cashing in on 1/27.5 of the value of the property every single year as a depreciation deduction. And so that 39-year number, that's for non-residential property. For a non-residential property, so an office building, a retail plaza, a movie theater, anything like that. The reason why they assign a longer useful life, that's what they call these, the useful lives of property, is because with a non-residential property, it's typically built with more durable materials. And when you have more durable materials, they last longer, therefore you get more time to depreciate them. And really what that means is you get a smaller percentage every single year. For residential property, you're cashing in on, let's do the math here and figure out, I don't have the calculator on me. We'll grab a calculator after the next break here. But you're cashing in on about, what is that, about 4% or so? About 4% of the property value, 27.5 divided by 100, whatever that adds up to. It's going to be about 4% that you're getting into depreciation every single year. Whereas 39 out of 100%, you're looking at maybe about a 2 to 3%, maybe 2.5% depreciation that you're getting. Now, typically with your non-residential properties, though, it's worth more. So let's go ahead and do a calculation on one of these here. And then once we get through this IRS, we'll go ahead and talk about, for the cost approach, defining value and how this depreciation factors in, because it's actually very similar to this. The only difference is these aren't the standard numbers. These aren't standard numbers for regular depreciation. These are standard numbers for taxes. So let's say that we've got a property, and the property value is, let's say, I'll use nice even round numbers, $100,000. So we've got our property that's valued at $100,000. But that's the entire property. The land value is, let's say, 10% of that. So out of our entire $100,000 property value, our land is 10% of that value. So that leaves our building, and this we could just kind of deduce from this here, because what you want to remember is, so we've got 100%, this is our, basically just a kind of little pie chart here, and if 10% is land, 90% is going to be the building. Hey, can you go grab the calculator out of my desk? I think there's one in a drawer somewhere. So our building value is 90%. So our property, $100,000, and now you could do some quick math. I don't need the calculator for this one here. The math we're about to do, these divisions, that's where you want to use a calculator. And you are allowed to use a calculator on your real estate exam. And when you're using the calculator and you know what you have to do to solve these, the math's actually really simple and it's easy, 10 points to get on your real estate exams. So our land value out of this $100,000 total property value is $10,000. Our building value would be $90,000. And you could always double check this to just make sure. There's a lot of ways, and that's what's nice about the math. You'd always go through the logic and double check the stuff. Is these two numbers, they both add up to 100%. Thank you. Both these numbers add up to 100%. 10,000 plus 90,000 adds up also to 100%. So we're basically just finding what our land value is, 10,000, and our building value is 90,000. And then yes, the two do check out. When we add them up, that adds back up to $100,000. If it's not building value, what's left over is land, and vice versa. Now, we don't need this land number. You could have found the 10% of 100,000 and subtract that out to get 90,000, or you could take 100,000 times 90% and get 90,000. Whichever way you want to do it, either one's going to work. So now we're going to go ahead and take our $90,000 building value. So remember, we're always going off of the building value, not the total property value that was given to us in the question. And now the question is also going to tell you whether it's residential property for 27.5 or non-residential for 39 years. So you're going to take that $90,000 and let's say this is a residential property. We're going to divide this by 27.5 years. So we take our 90,000, divide that by 27.5, and we get about $3,272 and about 73 cents. And that is our annual depreciation deduction. We get this amount deducted from our taxes, and this is the part that really makes investing in real estate appealing to so many investors. And this is just one of the benefits. There's a lot of them, but you get this deduction even if your property went up in value. Maybe you made improvements to the building and the building actually went up in value and you had reverse depreciation. You actually extended the life of it because of maybe what you did. Or maybe you didn't do anything and it just didn't lose any value. Either way, this is a standard deduction that you get. Once it's calculated out, you get this regardless of whether or not the depreciation occurred or not. So that's pretty huge. And then on top of that, if you had an expense of replacing the roof, that's also an expense on top of that. That doesn't get taken away by your depreciation deduction that you have on there. You get that regardless. That just sticks right on there, and it takes off of your taxable income. So if your income on the property was $3,200 that year, you brought in $3,200 on this $100,000 property in net income after all of your expenses, and that's how much would typically be taxable, not with this $3,200 on top of that. That basically is going to wipe that out where you don't have any taxable income on this property despite having whatever that amount of rent is that came in on the property. So that's a huge benefit that helps offset that to help shield and shelter. They call this whole thing a tax shelter because we start talking about some higher value properties. Let's actually do one of those pieces of math here. We'll do a non-residential one. Let's say we've got a $10 million office building. So we're a big time investor now. We've got a $10 million office building. we'll say our entire property is, we'll say the entire property is $15 million. And that includes our land. Our land on this case here is 20% of the value. So that leads us to our building being 80%. So we've got a $15 million property, 20% is land. The first thing we've got to do is find out, okay, we don't really care what that 20% land is. We want to find the 80% of that $15 million. So we're going to go ahead and take our $15 million, make sure we got enough zeros in there, and multiply by 80%, and we've got $12 million. So we'll go off of a building value for this property of $12 million. So that's the value of our building. And now, I mean, the math is pretty easy for this. All we're going to do is just take this $12 million and divide it by 39 years because we're dealing with an office building. Before we were dealing with a residential, single-family home, some sort of duplex, something like that, that would be residential. The office building, non-residential, so we're going to take the $12 million and divide it now by 39 years. And we end up getting $307,692. So 307, 692, and 30 cents. Don't forget that 30 cents there. As our depreciation deduction, $307,000 in a deduction. Yes, it's an expensive property, but I mean that's enough probably to wipe out the amount of income that you're getting on this property. If you're making $250,000 in net income after expenses on this property, and you've got this $307,692 deduction, this tax-free money it is that you have because of the depreciation deduction. And if you feel like that's wrong, I mean, you could pay the taxes. You don't have to take this deduction. You could overpay your taxes, pay more than you owe. But I mean, who's going to do that, right? So that's our depreciation deduction. And like I said, you get that regardless. So we've got a few more minutes left, and I just want to kind of build on this and talk about how we use this differently when we're dealing with appraising a property. So when you're appraising a property or doing any sort of valuation of a property using the cost appreciation approach, where you basically, the cost appreciation approach is where you're finding the brand new cost of the property and then applying depreciation to it. The same things kind of hold true. Number one, we don't ever depreciate the land. The land does not depreciate in value, so we're always going to do our depreciation separately from that. We're still going to have our building value. That's what we're looking for. You have your building value. You're going to have some different numbers with this. So with the IRS, it's pretty simple. 27 and a half years is how long it lasts for residential. 39 is how long it lasts for non-residential. Those numbers may be different when you're valuing the property for non-tax purposes. So what you're going to have is called the effective age. There's really a couple different ages that we have. We have our effective age and our actual age. Effective age is how old it seems to be. Actual age is how old it actually is. But we don't care about actual age when we're trying to calculate depreciation. We don't care about, okay, how old does it seem to be? That's effective age. And then there's one other number on here, and that's the economic life. We've got age, we've got life. So the economic life is how long the property is expected to last. The property might be expected to last, let's say, 50 years, and it has an effective age of 10 years, a real age of 20 years. So when the actual age is 20 years, but the effective age is 10 years, that means we've got a property that was kept up in good shape. It should seem like a 20-year-old property because it is 20 years old, but it only seems like it's 10 years old. That's how effective age factors into this here. And then what you're going to find here is you're just dividing these numbers out. 10 divided by 50. 10 years is how old it actually is. 50 years is how long it's expected to last. So we divide this out, 10 divided by 50, and we get 20, 0.20 or 20%. That's how much depreciation we've had on this property, because it's expected to last 50 years and we've had 10 years of effective age on the property. So 20% of the brand new cost of that building is gone due to depreciation. And that's basically, you could then take that 20% number, multiply it against the building value to find out what the depreciation amount is, or multiply it by 80% to find out what the depreciated value is. But it's basically that same concept. It's just you're using different numbers for the economic life. You set whatever number it is that you want, and then you're factoring in now, okay, what is the effective age of the property? So it looks like we're out of time for today. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed talking about depreciation, and you've got some information if you've already got your real estate license to go implement in your real estate business. And if you don't have your real estate license yet, get out there and go get it. We've got a lot of classes throughout the Tampa Bay area, or even if you're not local or maybe your schedule doesn't allow you to take one of the classes, we've got online classes to help you get your real estate license. And you're going to learn an immense amount of information about real estate, about appraising property values, about the tax benefits of real estate, about the different types of deeds, about mortgages, about our money system. That's a fun topic I like to talk about in the classes. So definitely check us out at tampaschool.com. If you don't have a license yet, tampaschool.com. We've got a whole how-to guide, how to get licensed. It walks you through step by step. Go here to do your application, do your fingerprints here, and everything it is that you need to get your real estate license in Florida. If you've already got your license, check out our post-licensing and continuing education courses. Our post-licensing and continuing education courses, the FREC allows us a little bit of a leeway of the information it is that we could cover in there, so we try to make this information as applicable to your business as possible, to growing your business, because we want to see you guys out there being successful. It looks bad on us if you go get your real estate license and you're not successful. We don't want to see that with our students. We want you to go out there and not just be successful, but enjoy your new career. And a lot of that enjoyment comes from knowing what you're doing. When you know what you're doing and you're not stressed because you don't know what's next in a transaction, it's an enjoyable experience. You're helping people and you're getting paid pretty well to do that because of your expert information. So definitely check out tampaschool.com. If you've got questions on anything, even if you've been watching after the show here, we go back periodically and check the comments on this, so feel free to comment on any of these videos if you've got questions, or better yet, just give us a call. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way they can. So give us a call at 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. Check out tampaschool.com, and make sure you tune in next week for next week's episode of Ask the Instructor at 12 noon on Wednesday, and also tune in Friday for State of Real Estate at 12 noon. But that's all I've got for you guys today. I will see you on Friday.
Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.